Hold on tight to me, there's harmony in this quiet night.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 802 with a review of 28 Years Later. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week in the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, we're here to talk about the third installment in the 28 franchise. Stephen, to date, what has been your feeling about this franchise, and were you excited to sit down and watch 28 Years Later?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a leading question, because to date, I only knew the reputation of this franchise. I had not actually seen... Oh, wow, you forgot again. I had not, before this last week, seen any of the 28 blank later movies. Now, I knew many things, of course. I knew Cillian Murphy, fast zombies, the idea of the rage virus. I knew, like, the look and feel of the world that it had created and like what that did to the zombie filmmaking at the time. I know there is a large corner of the internet that would be mad that I'm using the word zombie rather than infected, because technically they're not zombies, because technically they're not undead, but also like, fuck those people. It's a zombie movie, obviously. Very, very obviously. But yeah, I had never seen them. And so when we knew that we were reviewing 28 Years Later this week, I did my due diligence. I watched 28 Days Later for the first time on Thursday, I think. I watched 28 Weeks Later yesterday, and I caught up with this new movie. So I have now seen the whole trilogy just to make sure I was all up to date, even though arguably 28 Years Later is a standalone sequel, and you didn't really need to see the other ones to get it, but whatever. Yeah. I feel like I need to know it in context. All that to say, I was excited about this movie, mainly because the trailer just kicks so much ass.
It's so good, yeah.
I mean, the trailer is good enough that recitation of the poem by the poet whose name is escaping me right now, it was so badass that Danny Boyle retroactively put the recording in the movie because it was so cool in the trailer.
What's funny is I did not know that was true, but I felt it in the moment where I was like, why is this playing right now? Is it literally just because the reaction to the trailer was so good that they put it in? So that's an interesting tidbit.
Yeah. It's a recording of a poem, Boots, by Rudyard Kipling. That's the name. But yeah, that was full on just music video mode, which speaks to Danny Boyle is a very kind of like musical filmmaker, right? That's the thing he is known for. So it kind of tracks that this like amazing thing from a trailer became a part of the movie. Anyway, trailer kicks ass, so I was in for it, even though I did not know anything about the franchise.
Yeah, I didn't know I needed another 28 film. But as you said, that trailer was so freaking good that I've been super hyped to watch this film. I love the original. I had to do a recap on the second one because I didn't remember it as much, because anytime I think about the series, I always think back to all the things in the first film. You know, and it's just naturally going to happen. I've revisited 28 Days Later many times. 28 Weeks Later, I did not revisit as much. I think I liked it at the time. I didn't re-watch it. I just kind of like watched some recap stuff and read some stuff just kind of get me caught up on it. But I definitely was super stoked to go into this. And yeah, again, we're going to play that trailer, which is still mostly just that poem. But the trailer's so fucking epic.
It is really good. But now I'm wondering, because I feel like we need to talk a little bit about the previous two movies now that I've seen them. Do we want to do that now? Do we want to do it in the context of a 28 Years Later review? I just kind of want to like rapid fire. I guess you already liked both of them, so I know your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead. That was implied in my original question to you. I just had forgot that you hadn't watched them yet.
Yeah. So my, big scorching hot take, 28 Days Later, really good movie. Very, very, very cool. I liked it a lot. It kicks a lot of ass. Even having known that it was famous for this like intensely crunchy digital style, I still was not prepared for how much it looks like it was filmed inside of an ass. Like it really does.
Like one of those flip cams.
Exactly. Yeah, it really does look bad. As an aesthetic, it was partly a limitation of digital filmmaking at the time. It also seems to be like an intentional choice to make it look as grainy as possible, maybe to cover some of the CG, maybe just to build this very unique world Danny Boyle wanted to build. Once I got over that, I thought it was amazing. And I love that it kind of obscures everything and you just feel like you're living in this kind of nightmarish hellscape. Cillian Murphy is amazing in that movie. One funny thing about that movie is, so toward the end, I assume we can spoil the ending of the previous movies since we're talking about 28 years later.
Yeah. I think I think it should be safe.
Yeah. So toward the end, they have their like Colonel Kurtz type character in the form of General, played by Christopher Eccleston, who's like manning this military area and winds up being a sexual assaulting monster.
Yeah.
And when he popped up on screen, my friend who I was watching it with and I both immediately referred to him as Ralph Fiennes at home. Like, we have Ralph Fiennes at home, kids. We don't need we don't need to get the real one. He was giving like a Ralph Fiennes vibe. And I was so excited when I learned in real time in 28 years later that Ralph Fiennes was in that movie.
Yeah.
Because it's like we upgraded. Just like the digital filmmaking has upgraded substantially to iPhone, we now got the real Ralph Fiennes, and we can leave Ralph Fiennes at home. At home.
We couldn't afford him in 28 days, but 28 years later, we could definitely afford him.
Exactly. We can definitely afford him. 28 weeks later had a significantly worse reputation. So it was a lot more fun than I expected, kind of knowing that people were generally down on it. Like, I think it is a fun zombie movie, maybe more of a standard zombie movie, but still fun. And it continues this kind of bold for the mid-2000s political stance these movies are taking, where the military are not the good guys. 28 weeks later, the horror is the U.S. military, like almost entirely, including some pretty shockingly violent and callous scenes that I appreciated a lot. It was kind of cool seeing a who's who of cast members who were probably already famous then, but definitely not as famous as they are now. Like Jeremy Renner, Idris Elba, Rose Byrne, like that, Imogen Poots, like all of that I thought was very fun to watch. But I have to say, 28 weeks later breaks so much lore. It basically feels like it was designed to break the ability for there to be future installments. A lot of people on the internet have been talking about how the ending of 28 weeks later shows zombies making it to Paris. And that was something that 28 years later had to kind of retcon, which they do by way of a title card. No one is talking about the much bigger lore problem, which is 28 weeks later establishes all the zombies have starved. And in fact, now all there are 15,000 people, most of whom we murdered, but a few of them became rage zombies. And now within 2 decades, there are enough that are roaming all of Britain, like that 50 people that ran out populated all of Britain. It completely breaks like the zombie mythology in a way that I find very frustrating. So I just have to pretend that ending, like that movie didn't happen. And in fact, there were zombies, there were rage-infected people everywhere, and the dumb Americans just didn't know that they are, in fact, all over Britain.
Steven, I think you're forgetting that they're fast, and it takes a matter of seconds.
Oh,
for the
so
infection
you think they're
to take over.
repopulating real fast?
They're like the rabbit versions of infected. They're just going and multiplying like crazy.
So do we think every infected that we see in 28 years later is less than 27 years old?
So the real question is, do they continue to age once they're infected? Or is it like kind of like the fountain of youth?
I don't know. Let's assume they continue to age, because we'll talk about it in 28 years later. There are certainly canonical kind of stages of life that happen for the infected.
They can.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I'll bleep that.
I'm just saying, like, how long does it take for 50 people to populate the whole of Britain and make large hordes that are roaming it? And the answer, unless there's this weird, like, reproduce every few minutes or something, is like a lot longer than it would take for this movie. So I feel like Alex Garland and Danny Boyle just decided 28 weeks later didn't happen and made a movie accordingly.
Yeah. All right. Well, There's a little hiccup there for you, but shall we see, Stephen, if that hiccup prevented you from enjoying this film?
Yep. The only other comment I have to make is 28 weeks later has to find a conceit where there's like this epic infected person who is like more infected than anyone else because he happens to have keycard access to everything in their whole facility. And he becomes this kind of like slasher villain in a way that I found really stupid, but also really funny.
I guess they learned the wrong lesson from Sunshine.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Let's take a listen to the trailer for 28 years later and then come back and give everybody a review.
Auntie, what's going on? Jimmy, sit still, keep quiet, and do not move from this spot.
Seven, 6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles today, 4, 11, 17, 32 the day before. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. Men go mad with watching them. There's no discharge in the war. If your eyes drop, they will get the top of you. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Try to think of something different. Oh, my God, me from going lunatic. Moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11, 5, 4, 17, 32 the day before.
All right. So that was the trailer for 28 years later. It basically follows this little village town that lives on an island. They have all survived whatever the current state of the rage virus is. And a group of them leave to go to the mainland to start as a hunt and then later potentially for other reasons. And it's sort of the story of their little adventure. Stephen Miller, what did you think of 28 years later?
This movie is such a interesting kind of change of pace from the previous two movies, and I kind of loved it. It is so strange and unpredictable, and it is one of those few movies where I feel like every moment I was watching, I couldn't predict what 10 minutes later I would be watching. It really defies the standard template that you expect from a zombie movie and from what the trailer shows you, but not in a way where it feels like the trailer was misleading. More like the trailer is preparing you for an unexpected world, and this delivers. I mean, the most traditional part is the opening, and it's obviously great. All of the 28 movies have done this, where they have an intro chapter showing a horror from the original outbreak that will in some kind of way connect to what we see later, but not necessarily be a one-to-one connection.
Like how you're
terrifying.
Very vague.
It is funny seeing the Teletubbies opening, which is also in the trailer, and thinking about Warfare, where Alex Garland does a very, very, very similar thing of like starting with old nostalgic television and then letting horror ensue right after. I don't really know what he's getting out of his system here, but it feels like a trend to me. And then we are dropped into this world where it is really exploring the kind of the way that the rage virus has turned Great Britain back into almost a medieval series of fiefdoms again. Like you have little remote villages, you have life that has continued in a very different way. And we assume we're watching a survival quest with Aaron Taylor Johnson and his kid Spike, Alfie Williams, who I don't think I've ever seen anything in before, but he's super good in this movie. You really think from the trailer that you're just going to watch them like leave their island home and get stranded and then battle zombies forever. And I'm not going to spoil what the movie does, but it continually surprises you. I thought it delivered on the zombie goods very well. Like, there are lots of great scenes in this movie that show the kind of the epic, fast-paced, infected type of threat that we've grown used to from previous installments. It extends the lore in a way that I found very, very interesting. You know, it gives you more of a taxonomy. It makes you think about how would this new, quote, race or species develop with 28 years to do that. It hits some really, really, really surprising emotional beats. Like, this movie made me cry, which is not a thing that I expected this movie to do at all. That didn't seem like even in the cards for a 28 Blanks Later type of movie. And it also is really funny. It finds room for like pretty hilarious comic beats toward the middle. It just has everything. The violence feels innovative. It finds new, surprisingly gory images that I've never thought about before, the way a head maybe connects to a spine. It continues Danny Boyle's obsession with showing male full frontal nudity, just swinging, and I, gotta give him props for that. This is a whole ass movie and like a meditation, like the previous movies, on what it means to be a human being and what rage does to us and how violence can corrupt you and whether there might be an alternate path. And goddamn, it just feels like it landed at the exact right time when the world feels like it's going to hell, to just enjoy this odd, dark, bloody rumination on what it means to hate each other and what it means to try to accept the inevitable. I don't know. I found it very moving, much like 28 Days Later came out in the aftermath of 9/11, but it was conceived of before that. It's just like a coincidence that it happened and wound up being the perfect vision of, 9/11 and the war on terror and all of that. This feels the same way to me. It's just like, it feels right for this moment in a way that is impossible to have written, but it just worked out. I don't know. I was very into this movie. How about you?
So I think that it's safe to say that the 28 franchise has sort of shaped zombie-related material moving forward. And in the years since that came out, in 2002, that the first one came out, so much stuff has taken from it that now it's a big question of, can it stand up to the things that have come in the time that were influenced by it, right? Can you ape the things that influence you or do something new that might spawn more stuff? And I think for me, the stuff that I like most about this film is the stuff that feels familiar, right? Like that whole first hour of the film, which is we live in a safe space. We are going out on patrol. I am a child coming of age. I'm going to do my first hunt, and I'm going to go out and see what life is like beyond the walls. There's so much stuff that has come since the original film that have played in that space more broadly, and this did that well. Like, that was the kind of exciting thing, is what is the state of the world outside those walls? Let me see those. Let me see it. This film, obviously, you talked before we got into the review about the use of the funky camera, or I should say shitty camera, in the first film, and like just how it was sort of like everything was super frenetic, and it was supposed to be like almost like it's not shot like it's first person or anything like that, but it's shot as though it's like the thing is just catching the action and shit's crazy. This film goes so hyper stylized that it kind of lost me a little bit. Like the bullet time for every single arrow that gets fired began to sort of gnaw on me a little bit as I watched the film. And there's some tonal shifts this film takes that are just so wild and out there. Specifically, I don't know if we're gonna have a spoiler section to talk about the ending of this film, But
we have to do a spoiler section. 'Cause I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about Ralph Fiennes not at home.
So there's a lot. This film is doing so much, and it's a thing where like this space it can play in, it has to do very little to really grip me and draw me in. But it is really interesting in seeing a lot of different stuff, as you said, expanding the lore and trying to do like so much. And this is a film that the further distance I get for it, the more I will fondly look back on it, because there is a lot of good stuff. So like next year, when I think back on this film, I'm going to be like, that movie was fucking rad. And I really, really enjoyed it. In the moment, I was sort of like dancing on this fine line of like, is this fucking weird, or do I actually like this? You know, like it was a thing where it would lose me and bring me back. It's just too much stuff, right? The stuff that's going on between Aaron Taylor Johnson and the people that are in his life. There was a lot of stuff that was just kind of like, I don't know if I need this. Obviously, that ties into something that pays it off in a way that makes it worth having had that be part of the story. But it feels like every time I ask why, there's a scene later that justifies it. But like, for me, it's not worth the squeeze to get there. Like it's like the thing is unnecessary, but this other thing is genuinely good. But you had to have the unnecessary thing to justify it. Like there's some strangeness to the way the story is, where it feels like it's just trying to do too much. And especially a film that starts with like such a prolonged like this film could have been, we went out for a hunt, we judged our time wrong, high tide came, and now we just have to survive until
it's
the
like
morning.
Lone Survivor, but with two people.
Yeah, like this film could have been just that and been totally fine. But instead it wants to add so much stuff and expand the lore so much. Like apparently this is potentially going to be a trilogy or something.
It is, yeah. Nia DaCosta's follow-up is already in the can, I think, so it's coming out pretty soon. So
it just feels like it feels so desperate to make the trilogy that it packs so much in so that you could follow it where it's going. So for me, it didn't lose me at all. It's just a thing where I was like, I was so prepared for this to be like the greatest film. And instead I'm like, yeah, I liked it.
Interesting. Wow. I had such a different feeling about it, just in terms of expectations versus reality. Like everything. I mean, of course, I still greatly enjoyed the parts that are the more traditional survival, father and son leave the safety of their village and have to go hunting and then get caught in a terrible situation. It's riveting. Was super into it. But the things that really excited me were the tonal shifts and the deep lore changes that have been made, not for me because I was thinking, wow, there is a trilogy at play and I'm glad the world is being deepened. It's because I found it was just more interesting. Like it made it feel like a more lived in universe that we were grappling with. And then the other thing I loved was the frenetic filmmaking. Like this is like what Danny Boyle does. And it like, love Alex Garland on his own. We can pretend Men didn't happen. Other than that, like I feel like he's like like Alex Garland has a very singular vision and his authorial voice like matches the movies he makes. I feel like his aesthetic is at least a little bit on display here in like collaboration, at least the colors and everything. It looks a lot like the kind of movies he's been making. Like Annihilation kept coming to mind while I watched this. But Danny Boyle just as this like joyous, emotional, hypercharged filmmaker is such a nice counterbalance to everything that Garland does. I was just so happy to like see them team up again. And I loved you talked about the kind of chunked up bullet time, where it's like bullet time with like 2 or 3 camera positions, that it keeps doing. I was all about that. And I love there's editing in this movie that keeps cross-cutting archival footage or British films about like the Middle Ages or films about wars, and then cutting things that are going to happen later in the movie, and then these like impressionistic things where you don't even really know exactly what it's doing, and I loved all of that. To me, I was like, Boyle is on fucking fire. This is what I want.
The funny thing is that is one of the things that annoyed me the most. I was like, your movie's not that deep, man.
Oh man,
it's fucking rage zombies.
I loved it. Like, I think, granted,
it became
remember,
flow at one point, and I was like, what the hell is happening?
I mean, remember, I didn't watch any of these when they came out. So to me, watching 28 Days Later, I watched it with all the context of like the cultural legacy and critics and shit, like talking about it forever. So I'm sure I came into it loaded with more meaning. But to me, like, that movie is deep. Like, the whole evil of that movie, like the coup of 28 Days Later is it opens with all this horrific imagery, and you expect that it's opening with showing this is what happened when the apocalypse occurred. This is like the outbreak. But no, the imagery is just like the news. That's just like what people actually do already. And the whole bite of the movie is like rage as a metaphor, right? Like the bloodlust of everyone. This is what happens if you just give people an excuse, right? This is how evil we can all be. And all zombies movies like have some element of that, of, you know, this is the nightmare of being a person, this is societal collapse, blah, blah, blah. But like, these movies have so consistently been about like the darkness of the human condition. I feel like it totally is earned for it to steer into that and try to make the movie deep. Like, to me, that is that's very cool. Like I think it deserves to be able to do that. Yeah,
I guess I should backpedal a little bit, and specifically the deepness of like the tree of life-y sort of stuff that it tries to play with, right? Like not just the deepness of the metaphor of the virus and society and how we interact with other people, but specifically some of the imagery it chooses to play in and be sort of metaphorically fantastical.
Yeah, I hear you. I just, man, Danny Boyle chopping and screwing in action sequence, like, I want that all day, every day. I know it's an acquired taste. I know it's not for everybody, and this movie goes like very, very Boyle, but I was into it for sure.
Yeah. Any more non-spoilery stuff?
I think we should get into spoilers, because I even feel guilty revealing that this isn't only a survival movie. So I feel like it's kind of hard to talk about details without getting into spoilers.
I mean, you didn't really say what it is. So
no, of course. I just said it isn't only the thing you're expecting it to be.
Yeah.
Which is what I expected it to be until it wasn't.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to have a spoiler section in just a bit. But for now, we're going to have to say verdicts for the non-spoilery folks. Stephen Miller, if you're going to give this a must-see, recommend with the caveat, wait for rental, pass with the caveat, or must avoid, what would you give it?
I'm going full must-see. I thought this movie was awesome. I was very, very into it. I love when a filmmaker takes like a big spectacle with what I imagine was a serious budget. I haven't like looked into it, but it looks amazing, you know? And then does something kind of weird with it, you know, like challenges the audience. And this feels like a home run on that front. I feel like he pushed it just as far as was possible before he would lose people, and I really admire that kind of like filmmaking like that is just bordering the edge of being too artsy for a general audience. I think he fucking crushed it.
Steven, do you know how much 25 iPhones on a rig cost in this economy? This was an expensive movie. Just kidding. I'm sure it was shot before tariffs.
Should have done 20 iPhone 5s instead. I don't know how the math.
Yeah. It should have been 28 iPhones later.
Definitely.
That's the name of the documentary that they're going to make.
We got it.
Anyways, for me, as much as I'm being negative about this film, it's still a recommend with the caveat for me. As I said, with distance, I'm just going to look back very fondly about this film. It's just some of the stuff in the moment I was not calibrated to take. I mean, that we'll talk about the ending, but like the ending of this movie is fucking wild.
Oh, sure. That, in my mind, that's like a post-credit sequence that they just decided to put before the fold. Like,
rage will return. But yeah, so again, we're about to get into spoilers, but for now, for people who aren't going to join us for spoilers, let's go ahead and say goodbye to them. Stephen Miller, people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Threads or Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL on a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at SpoilerWarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so on Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. That music is going to fade up, and when that music fades out, we're going to be infected with rage. We're going to talk spoilers for this film. So, see you in a moment. All right, we are back. This is spoiler territory. It's the after part of our review of 28 Years Later. We are hanging out inside of our little village on an island with a little thing. It is now low tide. We are going to leave the village and trek out into spoilers. Steven, where would you like to start?
I mean, I guess first just some of the lore of the movie. Like, this movie introduces two concepts that I found very new. First is these kind of sluggish, very fat rage zombies, ones who have just survived bloated, kind of like a drowned person, you know, and they've survived for decades eating worms and grubs and doing whatever they have to do to survive. And they're just this like purple, gross, weird, like almost insect-like creature that I found just very disturbing. And it's a kind of funny inversion of the fast rage zombies that is like the whole point of the 28 franchise. But then you pair them with the alphas, which are like just the big swinging. I assume I'm going to decide all of them are people who were born from other rage zombies, and they're just like the generation alpha or whatever, who are just all rage all the time. And I love them.
To be fair, we only see a single alpha in this film.
Do we? It's just the one. It's just Samson. Don't we also see like someone who is, I guess I interpreted it as them like crossing the gates to France again, but I guess in hindsight they were actually just attacking the Swedish people who were landing, right? So maybe it was all Samson.
Yeah. So I assume there are other alphas out there, but in the local vicinity of the film that we're watching, I believe he is the alpha.
Wait, no, we saw two, because N Alpha chases them across the causeway and then gets like
that's the same.
Pelted with arrows. No, because he's killed. He's killed there. They even call the boy like Spike the Alpha Slayer later.
There's two Alpha.
yeah. There are at least two Alpha.
Yeah. Okay, that's right.
But I love the Alpha. It's like, what if they were even bigger and even faster?
Yeah, and though I don't know if it makes sense that they're like way bigger like that. But you know, I guess that's how they become the Alpha.
Yeah, who knows? When two rage zombies make a rage baby and then it grows up, maybe it's something and it powers it even more.
I'm glad that you didn't go when two rage zombies love each other very much, because I don't think.
No, I don't think love has a lot to do with it.
I don't think there was any consensualness in whatever took place there.
But yeah, I love that. I enjoy them deepening the lore. And now that I think about the trilogy, I think it will be fun to see how this develops. I almost feel like I'm playing like Age of Empires or something, or Warcraft. It's like, oh my gosh, there's this whole new like catalog of different type of rage monsters that can appear, and I'm into it.
Yeah. So that, if I'm honest, that's one of the things that felt a little bit lesser, because it feels like all these other things like Last of Us and other properties that have also taken fast zombies have always had, I mean, a lot of these are video game properties, right? So you have to have other versions of the thing, right? You have to have, you have the fast zombies, but those are like the regular ones. But then you have like the elites, or like the hero mode zombies that are different, and they kind of bring something else to the picture. And it felt like this was kind of like, Last of Us has bloaters, right? So let's do a bloater, but we don't want it to look like we're doing a bloater. So what if it just crawled really slow on the ground and it was just kind of bloaty looking, but it doesn't like actually explode and release anything? You know, there was stuff that just felt like it was kind of like, okay, I can't tell whether you think it's really funny to see a fat giant baby,
Which it is. Let's be clear.
But that's the thing is that tonally, I'm like, does he just think the fat baby is funny, or like for instance, the thing trying to eat the shoelace because it thinks it's a worm, that just feels so.
I think it's funny and horrific, like in a way that I enjoyed. Not that it's scary, but like the image of it trying to eat the shoelace and then like getting up closer and, you know, opening wide in this kind of terrifying way. Yeah. Like I enjoy the like sliminess of it.
I should have said this in the main part of the review, because I should just explain that my experience for the film may have slightly been tainted. Sitting down for this film, there was like 3 women that came and sat down next to me who were just very, very noisy before the movie started. And then right as the trailers were about to start, they were like, "You want an edible?" to each other, and they were passing around edibles. So I may have been slightly thrown aside by their presence with me while I was watching this film.
I have my own like 4DX story, but I'll save it for off mic because I don't want to be cruel. But I also had an audience that was not the easiest to watch the movie with.
These women were less than 40 though, Steven. So
okay. Oh, right.
Anyways, let's go on. We were talking.
You misunderstood me. There were 40 X's. Of mine. It was like a Scott Pilgrim type situation.
Nice. And you had to fight them all.
Yeah. But yeah, moving forward. So, okay, we have already clearly said that this movie could have been structured as father and son go out hunting, get stranded, have to try to survive on their own. And that could have been a whole story. And then it ends with maybe only the son making it back to his village or something. You could totally imagine that. This doesn't do that. They make it back through the causeway around like maybe the halfway point of the movie. And this is where if I had been thinking more critically, I would have known you probably don't cast Jodie Comer to just have her like be in a bed in one scene and call it a day. This is where it switches into this different kind of coming of age story where Spike decides to take his mom to what he has learned is a doctor because he wants to try to heal her. And like, he doesn't understand the world, right? He doesn't even know about the idea of a doctor until he's told about this. So he's kind of being naive. He's doing his best. You root for him while also thinking like, okay, this is a mistake. You know, you are probably not going to get what you want by venturing out there. And from there, it's still a survival movie occasionally, but the tone just changes a lot, right? Yeah. Like, we can start with them meeting a Swedish man who I want to call Bjorn, even though I think that's Michael Cera's character in the Phoenician scheme. But Eric, that's the guy's name. He meets Eric, and Eric is bringing this new concept that we theoretically knew about the world already, but I hadn't really thought about, which is, oh my God, Britain is frozen in like 2001, basically, and the rest of the world continues to move on in our modern reality as if nothing else has happened. And that tonal shift was very jarring because there are jokes about like DoorDash and a joke that I laughed my ass off about Eric's girlfriend and her looking, you know, like, I don't remember if they said this or I connected it. She looks like one of the bloaty zombies, basically.
Yeah. He basically said he had a friend who has shellfish allergies, and that's what they look like when they eat.
She's got lip filler, and he's just not used to this new world. And to me, that idea, that like jarring mashup of like, oh my God, the regular world is out there, just living their life, having fun, ordering DoorDash, like everything is normal, and they just left these people to themselves on this like godforsaken island where it's the Middle Ages again. I really enjoyed that. That was another tonal swerve that I liked a lot.
Yeah. That is also cool.
You agree. You don't mind Eric. You're fine with Eric.
Yeah. He was one of the like introduction of humor and levity that I didn't mind, because he was literally a fish out of water, right? Like, it's in theory, our characters are the ones that are the fishes out of water, but he's the one who's who's stuck there with them, and he is annoyed at like how everything is backwards. He doesn't understand how anything is. So like to me, he was kind of a fun character, even though he was like a total douche. But I did like his presence in the film.
Yeah. Well, and luckily we get to see his head ripped off and his spine come along with it, so that's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the main event, the stuff that maybe was polarizing but got me real good, was everything about Ralph Fiennes, Dr. Kelson. The character who, you know, because they're building him up as like Aaron Taylor Johnson saw him doing a thing with bodies and expects him to be a freak or a disturbed individual. You kind of know he's not going to be that, just because it'd be too predictable for him to be exactly what they're building up to him.
Yeah.
But he shows up, and first he kind of seems like a comic relief character. You know, this guy that is like, has become very quirky because he hasn't interacted with a human being in a long time. He hasn't gotten to talk with people. He looks like he's covered in blood, but he's actually covered in iodine because he's a doctor, and this is a prophylactic, I think is the word. Like it like helps repel the virus. And like after, I would say, a few minutes of the audience just kind of chuckling at him or not really knowing what to make of him, he becomes this like alternate father figure. He's like if Aaron Taylor Johnson represents, here is how you survive in a dog-eat-dog world where like you have to kill or be killed, you have to be strong, you have to fight. Ralph Fiennes is like, here's what do no harm looks like. Like, I am one human being left who still believes in this ethos, and he like has found a way to just mourn death everywhere. He has like a begrudging, you know, respect or truce, like almost an anthropological interest in Samson and the alphas and in the ways of the infected. And his presence immediately I found just very calming. And it's like, it's very much like teaching this kid other aspects of life. And then it becomes about like, remember death, right? Mortis est mori. I don't remember.
Yeah, memento
Latin.
mori.
Memento mori. That's right. And it's just like that Tower of Skulls, that thing that was in the poster, the thing that you know is at least a visual motif of the movie, is instead this like beautiful, somber thing where he just believes it is worth remembering that real people were here and this is what happened and they need to be honored. And dovetailing that in with Jodie Comer getting like very tenderly assessed for cancer. You know, he's treating her with kindness. He's like asking before he takes any action, and he's very gentle with her, and then like choosing to lovingly euthanize her, like, and teaching Spike that it's okay. Like, there are bad deaths and good deaths. Some are better than others, and it is good when people can go out on their own time. And like at the end of this sequence, when he just brings back the skull and tells Spike, like, pick the best spot for her, I'm just like bawling. I'm just like, why did this movie do this to me? How did a movie that is like a ridiculous zombie movie turn into a thing that feels like a beautiful meditation on death? But I felt all of it, and I believe Jodie Comer's character is like that well grounded or established in the movie, but something about how she plays that moment and how Spike plays it, just like all three of them just got me so hard. And I was like, I love this movie. I don't know what it is or how it did it, but I love this. And from then on, it's just like a gentle denouement until what we're about to talk about, which I consider the post-credits scene that just happened before the credits.
Well, before we get there, I wholeheartedly agree with you on all this stuff. I kind of said in the previous review that I was kind of annoyed that I needed the stuff with the mother to get to this stuff, because I do think it is genuinely beautiful, and I did have an emotional reaction to it. I think for me, you know, in these type of stories, usually sects of people in these post-apocalyptic worlds create religion and become zealots, and they become their own flavor of evil, right? That's kind of how the story's played out. In this story, he has kind of created this selfless, joyous religion of just worshiping and honoring those who have died. And like, I think it is a genuinely beautiful sentiment. I love every moment of it. But at the same time, my brain still goes like, Jodie Comer wasn't that close to death. like he's like, oh yeah, you're eventually gonna die, probably soon. We'll kill you now. And like the fact that like there's no moment for him to say goodbye, really. Like he doesn't know he's saying goodbye when he gets darted. It's kind of like they take away his agency momentarily and then come back and say like, here's your mom's skull, go do a beautiful thing now. And like, I don't know if I believe he responds that way in the moment in reality, but it's still beautiful and I still love what it's doing. But it's just a thing where it's like, I was kind of like, it feels compressed somehow. Like this should have been like a larger conversation that we have. And it's like a lot of implied stuff where it's like the timeline is the only thing that bugs me. Like I'm fine with it being implied, but it just stands out as a kind of strange thing to me.
Yeah, I guess my 2 points in response to that. First, it is abbreviated, but Jodie Comer does have a line when Ralph Fiennes is like talking about her condition and what it's going to do to her that like it already hurts all the time. Yeah, so she's kind of like revealing the agony that she's been in. And it isn't much, but I think it's like enough to kind of get you there. And then to me, and this is maybe a stretch, but that like rapid turnaround from this person is alive to I have to kill them, in my mind mirrors the logic of this world post-rage virus, when like the main motif of the series is like a person is on your side and you're with them, and then in a flash they turn and you have to kill them. And like the senselessness of
if
death,
they're afflicted with anything.
Feel like, yeah, it becomes like emotionally similar. Like this is the exact same thing happening, but out of love. And that's more just a feeling, you know, but I feel like it works for that reason.
Yeah. I
guess
the
kid has already seen that notion of death being a sudden thing that happens. And so I feel like for him, it maybe isn't a leap to believe that.
Yeah. I guess for me, like, not only does he not know about DoorDash and lip filler, but he doesn't know what cancer is, right? There's probably never been a person in his lifetime that has died of cancer. He just thinks mom is sick, which is another thing that like this film plays with the imagery of rage in non-infected ways. And I know that like you're saying that that's part of the metaphor of us in society, but like the way it lingers on her sudden screams. Like when we were first introduced to her screaming upstairs, I thought this was going to be like a weird, like Hot Fuzz situation where the wife is just chained upstairs and like he couldn't bear to kill her, but she's been infected the whole time.
Right.
But when it's just she's dying of cancer, it's kind of like all right, cool. Gotcha. But yeah, just kind of, and then there's like scenes where Aaron Taylor Johnson is like, it lingers on him shaking and the rage that he has inside of him. And it just, you know, I didn't know if it was going to be a weird thing where like Jodie Comer is like 28 years later Imogen Poots or something like that. And Aaron Taylor Johnson,
somebody who has this kind of like semi-immunity, but still is carrying.
Yeah. And like maybe the reason why she is quote unquote sick is because as you age, that immunity is starting to break down and something. And like, I was kind of wondering I would not have thought this if I wasn't like recapping right before seeing the film, but it did kind of make me wonder if there was some sort of like, this is what this is going to be. It's that they were immune. They've stayed quiet about it, but now it's all starting to break down. And he knows that. That's why he kind of leaves her there. And he doesn't want to like, you know, there's lots of places where I thought this could be going. But it just kind of
makes sense.
All there.
Well, so anyway, there is what I would consider the beautiful ending of the movie, which is Spike returning. It's like a montage, dropping off the baby, who we haven't even talked about, comes from pregnant rage zombie. I'm fine with that. I appreciate it enough. That is an area where I don't know if Jodie Comer, like, brain cancer becomes the condition that they diagnose her with, but up until that point she's doing a lot of semi-mystical things as if she like knows something other people don't know, including delivering this baby. And that is one example where I think her character is like underwritten, or her character is just an idea that doesn't totally mesh with what the movie is doing.
I kind of took it as because she kind of has these episodes where she kind of fades in and out, that like for her, she just saw a pregnant woman in need, and she wasn't, she like empathized with her and wanted to help her more than then was thinking of her as an infected. It was just kind of like basic instincts were taking over, and she didn't have her full cognitive function. That's kind of
I agree with that. I think that works. Anyway, Spike drops off the baby and leaves a note for his dad saying that like he needs to spend more time out there. He'll be back someday, and then he heads out. And to me, that is the ending. Of course, all of these movies have a 28 days later after that. So this goes 28 days later. For what it's worth, even the original 28 days later, I think is better if you pretend the ending doesn't exist. Like the thing they do after the movie, I think is always worse. Yeah, because the second one has the invading Paris scene too. All of them are ones that I think would be better if you didn't consider them canonically a part of the movie.
Yeah. They're like
anyway,
your own Florida project where it's just them imagining what's happening after the movie.
Yeah. But this time the kid is kicking ass. You know, they're teeing up the fact that a sequel is going to happen. He gets attacked by rage zombies. He fights a few of them, but eventually there are too many, and he runs and hits a dead end. And then he sees Jack O'Connell, the kid.
Hold, fucking go.
Someone who is just in a completely different movie. In every sense of the world, he is in the Warriors, basically.
Yeah.
And I didn't clock this, but many smart people have. He and his gang of the Jimmies are dressed as Jimmy Savile, who is the famous sex pest, the man who was revered in Britain, and then after he died, hundreds of allegations about the ways he was like an monstrous abuser of children came out. But this exists in a world where no one knows that yet because it happened in the early 2000s. And so you have this this cult of people dressed in this ridiculous glam garb who are delighting in murder. They are the polar opposite of Ralph Fiennes. They are not believing in the sanctity of life or anything. They are just having fun doing this, you know? And it is so jarring and weird, and I have no idea what to make of it except for, okay, this franchise is going fucking places.
Yeah.
I guess I want to see what happens next.
It was one of those things where like that tag on the ending confirmed all my weird feelings from the rest of the film. Where it was like, oh, we're just fucking doing this for fun. That's what's going on here.
One thing that confused me too, and this is my bad, you know, in the cold open, the kid is named Jimmy, the kid we see, and he escapes. And one of the last things he does before he escapes is his father gives him a cross necklace, and then he runs away. Cut to the village with Aaron Taylor Johnson, who seems like roughly the right age, and his name is Jamie, and the accents, like I didn't really pick up that there were differences in their names. I just questioned and figured Jamie was the name of the kid, and I had forgotten it.
Jamie.
Yeah, and Spike has a necklace that I don't think we ever really see, but he's like wearing something around his neck the whole time.
We do see the cross.
We do see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so I don't know if this was an intentional misdirect of the movie, but I assumed like that kid grew up to be Aaron Taylor Johnson, and he passed the necklace down to his son. And now, much like he had with his father, he's about to be let down. Like Spike is about to be let down by Jamie/Jimmy. And so for me, the ending was a kind of weird retcon of like, gotcha, there's a different Jimmy. And I don't know if that's just because I got the names mixed up, but to me, that was a very kind of silly aspect of the ending.
I think there's two things. For me, I just assume if you see a kid and then you cut to like an old person, that's just them. So I was on the same boat as you, where it's like, that's just where we're going.
Right.
But I completely forgot he was going to be in the movie.
Oh yeah, I had no idea.
And then I remember, like, as soon as I see him, I was like, oh, that's right. Wait, this is him? Wait, is that the necklace? Is he the kid from the first? And it was like so much information being delivered all at once that I was kind of like, huh. And also you talked about how people love the trailer so much that they put the thing back, the poem back into the film, just to have it there too, because it was so epic. this tag at the end makes me feel like the tag at the beginning with the priest is also added after the fact. Like they were like, we're making one movie, and then they're like, but what if we made 3 movies? And like, but shit, we already made the movie. And they're like, wait, we'll just shoot a thing at the end and the beginning, and we'll put those on it, and it'll clearly tell that there's a bigger story that's happening. And it made me just question everything that I watched to that moment.
So emotionally, it could have kind of happened that way in the sense that maybe they like were working on the second movie, Star Wars style, and like didn't know what it was going to be, and then had to retroactively fit the earlier one to match it. Yeah. But I do know that the trilogy was greenlit all at once. It was part of like this big negotiating thing. There was a while where you couldn't find 28 Days Later online in any like legal capacity, and it's because the rights had reverted to Boyle and Garland, I think, and they were like trying to strike a deal with what eventually I believe became Sony. I should have that up and just know the answer. And part of it was getting a trilogy deal out of it. So they did literally know there was going to be a trilogy already, but that doesn't mean they knew the details. So maybe they still did retcon this in at the end.
All right. Big question for you. I assume the trilogy is just going to be a series of somethings.
The next one is the Bone Temple, I think.
Okay. But in a world where it wasn't going to be something, what do you think the next milestone is timeline-wise?
This is like the before movies. Yeah. It's a great
like
question.
28 decades later? Or...
Yeah, is there an in-between? There's not really anything else you could do, right?
Yeah. Or is it 28
leap years later.
That's what I was going to say.
And it'll be combining leap year, too. It'll be a crossover.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, you're excited for the Warriors in 28?
I'm excited. I mean, I haven't looked up anything about it. I don't think Jack O'Connell is being presented as a hero here. I think he's meant to be demented, and we're meant to be like treat him the way we would treat a like Mad Max character, or something.
Like he
so
is
I have no
what
idea
people
what
thought
they're doing.
Ralph Fiennes was.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, presumably he is the one that had the zombie that was like chained up and still alive and had a blood bag over his head and all that stuff. I assume he is the kind of demented nihilist who just like enjoys torturing these guys. I feel like the fact that this came out right after Sinners is probably giving extra juice to seeing like demented Jack O'Connell in action.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've no idea what the other movie is going to be, but I want to live in this world, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, I'm still excited for whatever comes next. I'm just newly calibrated to properly walk into the next film.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.